peacefully protest.
Now, when you talk about regulating time, place, and manner, do you see a regulation in the future where they'll be allowed to protest at specific times? So it's not 24 hours?
That's a provision. That they can do it at specific times, and the city has the right to set those times, place, and manner.
When they were under the Burnside Bridge at midnight on Tuesday night and the police come along and they say they're protesting, does that mean the police won't be able to sweep them then?
Under the Burnside Bridge?
Any bridge, where they were
Is that a question of fact, or are you just speculating?
I'm asking you, if a bunch of homeless people want to camp out underneath the Burnside Bridge and they call that a protest, does that then count as a protest in the future, or are they going to be cited under a camping ordinance? What's the situation there?
I think it'd have to be taken at the time on the facts.
Many cities have, in LA and a number of other cities, laws similar to the civil law and ordinances have been found unconstitutional. And do you foresee something like that happening in Portland, and if it does, what's your response?
Well, that's always a possibility. People can take it to a court of law, and that the ruling of the court will be binding on all parties. So at that time we'll deal with the issue if the ruling is against the city of Portland.
One moment, people, please.
Do you feel like you're making progress?
I just want to say thank you, Mayor Potter, for inviting us back into the session. I believe we need to meet again. Thank you.
Do you feel like progress is being made with this issue?
I do. Talking with these folks, we talked about, they said, how do we, where do we go, and how do we find a way out? I've assigned the commander at Central and other folks to start working on those issues to see if there's a way that we can do it peacefully. That's always our first option, is to try to figure out how to do this peacefully.
Is the city intending to have a public forum on homelessness where non-profit organizations in the city we speak to the community on homelessness?
We're going to one tonight.
Where's that?
It's at the convention center. It's sponsored by a religious organization. I think the name of it, but you know Louis Palau. It's going to be his group. There's going to be about 1,400 people there.
You know if representatives from the administration will be there?
I don't. I know I'll be there.
Mayor, you suggested as a short-term solution for tonight that possibly supporters of the homeless find people to invite to their home.
Sure.
Is that something you're planning to do as a supporter of the homeless?
That's what you said, right?
No, I said that folks who are down here, who are supporting them, there are folks out there as protesters that are not homeless.
Are these two?
I suggested to them that they ask those people if they could stay at their houses.
But that's not something you're willing to do as a supporter of the homeless?
No.
Are these ordinances appropriate in a city with Portland's liberal and livable reputation?
You know, every city has an issue about homelessness, and I don't care what city in Oregon you go to. There are homeless people throughout our state. And that there's always that balance between what are the rights and what are the responsibilities. And I think that we're trying to approach it in a reasonable manner.
Homeless people would have been allowed to protest outside City Hall for 2 weeks with no police action and the other side of the court.
That's a good question, Anna. Why don't you call around?
Well, would the city look at a tent city too?
I mean, like Dignity Village.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know, that's been discussed. I've been out to Dignity Village several times, and you know, there's about a maximum, I think, of 60 people that are allowed to go to Dignity Village. But they're very strict about their rules. They have a zero tolerance towards fighting and drugs and other things. And if you do those things, then you have to leave. I think Dignity Village is a good one. Trying to replicate that may be difficult.
Last one, please.
Mayor Potter, two-part question. One, is there any plans for the city to formulate a task force that includes representatives of both the homeless community, the business owning community, the home full community, and the law enforcement community to sit down equitably together and discuss long-term, medium-term, and short-term solutions to the homeless problem? And if, second part of the question, if as a result of that council, responsible and equitable solutions could be devised that are based along similar lines of Dignity Village, but providing a larger number of beds on a more emergency shelter-based status, would the city consider such an option as being viable if it could save taxpayers money?
Let me answer your first question about such a committee. It already exists. It's in place. They meet. Next week, we've invited a group of people from this group to come in and talk with them. So that's taken care of. They can raise absolutely any issue they want to at those meetings. That's probably the proper place to ask the second question.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Yes, you're calling it constantly. You guys are I realized this was in my reading. Oh, no. I didn't realize it was sitting there now. Sorry.
Well, they give embrace it to people that aren't interested. You know, Channel 8, you know what, the PBS channel?
Oh, 10?
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually, I'm independent media, but did you go in and talk to him or something, or?
I did. He was holding a press conference up there in the atrium on the 3rd floor. Did you see part of it?
Yes, I did. I seen the press conference. Were you able to speak to him at all?
Yeah, I did. I asked him a couple of questions. You know, most directly, I asked him why he thinks that that he can sweep in the face of a constitutional right to free assembly. And his response was, well, we have laws and they're violating the law. So I said, well, wait a minute. And he claims that the city of Portland has the authority to regulate how protests are made, in the manner, the time, and the place. I asked him if he would grant a permit to these protesters, and he said they haven't asked for a permit. And I said, well, anyway, it was like that. And, he insisted that it's lawful for him to sweep everybody away, and that he's going to do it, I guess.
That's kind of the consensus I got. I was at the little press conference, and he more or less said the same thing in there, over the same question.
Right, so people were asking similar questions.
Similar questions, yeah. And he said the city has the right to determine when and where the protest and how long, which seems really...
Well, I think that he'll probably find that's not true if he actually talks to a real civil rights lawyer.
Yeah.
I don't think any government has the right to curtail any kind of free speech.
Yeah. And you know, it's kind of weird, too, is the other day I was over on that lawn there, and a guy came out and said, no protesting on federal property. So that's federal property over there, and you can't stand over there, and I guess, and protest without maybe a permit, according to them.
You know, you can protest in Washington, D.C., can't you? That's all federal property.
Yeah. Well, thanks for going in there and asking the good questions that need to be asked.
He seems to be,
I think that he's on an agenda.
Sort of, yeah, I agree. Somebody asked him, what is it the homeless could do to further their own cause besides protesting? And his best response was, well, they can stop obstructing traffic and sticking their feet and blocking people's paths and all this stuff. And so I asked him, well, what is it they can do to help their cause? I mean, as opposed to not make it worse, whatever you want to think. But, you know, here they are. What are we going to do? He didn't really answer that.
Yeah.
You know, he said they're violating the law and, you know, we're going to move them out.
The thing with the foot, that seemed like such a small thing.
Yeah.
Move your feet out of the street, okay, let's move along to the next issue. I didn't think, I wasn't there, I don't know how big that was.
The issue isn't people sticking their foot in the street. The issue was that he has no suggestion about what it is the homeless can do to improve their situation, which means that there's really only one recourse, and that's what you're doing right now. And I'm really glad to see that the press is here.
Yeah.
And I hope this is all over the news. And I think that the more people know about the nature of the conflict, I think that can only work better for the homeless, really.
You're right.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it makes the city look kind of cruel. Kind of, you know.
Yeah.
It makes the city look cruel.
I like them to really start acting cool now with all this.
No, cruel.
Oh, cruel.
I think the city is cruel in their treatment of, you know, a segment of their population.
Yes.
You know, for better or worse, they don't have any homes, but that doesn't mean they don't have any citizenship.
Mm-hmm.